In this video, we are going to talk about top 10 people who outlived insane prison sentences. So, before starting the video, please like this video. Do subscribe and turn on the notification to our channel for future updates. 10. Eddie Collins, 43 years. Not to be confused with Eddie Collins, the baseball player. We're talking about a 43-year-old male. Eddie was convicted of murder. "It was a tragic scenario, something I regret and still regret," he said throughout his prison stint. He was 21 and lived in Tucson, Arizona. He grew up in the city's rough side, buying narcotics with his 17-year-old brother. Eddie and his brother were buying drugs one day when they got into a fight and Eddie pulled out his gun and his life changed forever. 9. Otis Johnson, 44 years. Then 44 years behind jail. Otis was 25 when he was arrested for attempted murder of a cop. Otis has been imprisoned away since the 1970s and must now re-enter the current technological culture. It will be difficult for him, but he did do a heinous crime. He lost contact with his family in 1998 and now he is completely alone in the world. Prison gave him his ID and $40 when he was released. He'll need to renew his ID, and $40 will only afford him a few days' worth of food. 8. John Franzese, 50 years. Who is a 100-year-old mobster who just got out of prison after 50 years. John was released on June 23. He was freed from the Devon's Federal Medical Center. John was a Colombo underboss. John prides himself of killing at least 60 people. It amazes me that this man was permitted to go public. 7. Harvey Stewart, 60 years. Harvey, 83, was released in 2011. Harvey Stewart has a long rap sheet from Houston junkyard heights to murder. In the last decade or so, Stewart has been secluded from the world and doesn't know what's going on. Coming out after 60 years must be shocking to him. People traveled to space for the first time, the Beatles released their first single Love Me Do in the UK, and John F. Kennedy was president. 6. Hugh Alderman, 62 years. He was clearly a bank robber captured. His imprisonment began when he was 23 years old in 1917. Hugh was the only gang member left. He escaped from prison only a few years later. In 1924 he escaped again. He was freed from a mental hospital in 1927 and died at the age of 86. 5. Charles Edret Ford, 64 years. Who outlived a 64-year sentence. Tragically, Charles was innocent. The innocent man endured one of the longest sentences and was just released last year. Charles was found guilty. In the early 1950s, Charles, a black man, went before an all-white jury, when black people had no rights. 4. Howard Christensen, 64 years. Howard was executed in 1937 for the murder of a teacher. He was 16 when he murdered a teacher. He did this with a 17-year-old who was also caught. Also sentenced to life in prison, but committed suicide in 1943, just 6 years after being sentenced. After 30 years in jail, the sentence was commuted from life without parole to 200 years. After 64 years in prison, he was released in 2001 but died 2 years later. 3. Richard Honeck, 63 years and 1 month. Richard was 22 when he was condemned to life in jail for killing a former schoolmate. The length of a prison sentence varies depending on where you live, as well as what state or city you are in. He was released at 85 years old. He survived another 12 years till he died in 1976 at the age of 97. 2. Johnson Van Dyke Grigsby, 66 years. Johnson was convicted of murder in 1908. He was rejected parole 33 times. Before he was ultimately liberated at the age of 89 for no longer being a menace to society. He was released in 1974 after 66 years, but willingly returned to prison after finding it impossible to find work. 1. Paul Geidel Jr., 68 years. Who has the longest known prison sentence in America? He was condemned to 68 years in several New York State prisons and lived to see his release. That is an unusual occurrence. He was paroled at the age of 86 after serving a lengthy sentence. Paul was 17 when he was convicted of second-degree murder in 1911. The only life he knew was in prison. So when Paul was paroled he told them no publicity, please. So, that's it for today's video. What are your thoughts on our video? Please let us know in comments section below. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear from me again, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification to our channel before you go. Thank you so much for watching.